everybody, I hope you're doing well. Thanks for tuning into this latest video, which is at last going back to doing a bit of pixel art. This is going to be one of a few videos, maybe not necessarily all about this particular image, but going through some of the pixel art that I'm working on sort of in the background in between the other bits and pieces that I'm working on. I also wanted to combine these videos with not so much instruction, but a bit of an update of where things are sort of with my life here in Japan, and just generally sort of give you a bit of feedback on some of the things that have been happening here or not been happening here, as the case might be, which is very much the theme for the topic of conversation for this video, which is about why I don't stream from Japan. But first of all, let's get down to the core subject, which is about this piece of pixel art in the background here. So what you can see here is the result of me having adjusted a pencil sketch that I did in my sketchbook of my original character OSC from my manga or comic Future Saviors. This is Saki, and I would have ordinarily inked this before turning this into something that I'm going to create a piece of pixel art out of, but for reasons that I'll explain, I didn't actually ink this. What I actually did was I took a photo with my iPhone using an app called Scannable. I'm sure other apps are available, but basically this allows me to take a picture of a document or a drawing and turn it into a pretty good outline. Usually if you've got black ink, it will actually turn it into a really nice clear outline that you can then quite easily convert into pixel art. Now, I've talked about this before actually in probably what was one of my first videos that I created when I came to Japan, about how I use this process to shade artwork, but I will leave a link in the respective corner of this YouTube video for you to check that out. But what I do is I first will use the curves tool in Photoshop to reduce or increase the contrast of the image, and then I use the threshold tool to create a pure black and white image, a monochromatic image that I can then reduce in Photoshop in size down to 256 pixels in this case, and that then means that I can bring it into Deluxe Paint, where I can tidy up the outlines to give me a good outline to work from when it comes to shading. And the image in Deluxe Paint, after I've tidied it up, looks like this. Really, it's just a case of just getting rid of all the ragged stray pixels and so forth and forming them into nice outlines. This doesn't take as much work as it may look. It's a little bit sort of pixel by pixel, shall we say, but because the pencil sketch has sketched out all the anatomy in this case, you know, to be correct as far as I'm concerned, it's really just a case of just turning those ragged pixel edges into nice clear outlines. And then the next step, of which you'll see in this video, is using the stencil tool in Deluxe Paint to basically say only affect the black pixels, and I can shade the outlines of this particular sketch into darker colour tones of the predominant colour or hue that will be within the outline. So for example, on Saki's t-shirt, I think I'm going to do that in sort of like a light turquoise or light cyan colour, so I'm going to do the outline in sort of like a darker turquoise outline. You can use black outlines, but for my taste I've always preferred slightly more pastel toned images, so I tend to prefer using a darker colour rather than a black outline for the outlines of my pixel art. And this actually ties into why I didn't do an inked version of this drawing when I before I took the picture of it, because what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to do the ink drawing using light grey Copic multi-liner ink. The reason for this is that it means that when I go to colour this using colour Copic markers, which are like alcohol based markers, those light grey outlines will actually take on the hue of the colour that I'm shading with, and will turn out a little bit darker or a little bit lower in value, so that in essence I end up with colour outlines rather than black ink outlines for my hand-drawn image. So I thought, given that I was going to use light grey fine liner for the outlines of the ink drawing, I thought I'll just use the pencil sketch. It will save myself a bit of time and allow me also to get this video out a little bit sooner, but maybe in the next video I'll show you basically the final result of this image and also that hand-drawn colour Copic image as well. So on to why I don't stream from Japan. Well, there are some practical reasons as well as some others that have come out of the practicalities that mean that I probably won't ever stream from Japan, and I'm not sure I'll ever actually do a stream ever again, but I suppose you should never say never to anything. But first, on to the practicalities. When I first moved to Japan, my apartment had no internet as part of the deal, and unfortunately to get internet installed would have required signing up to a long contract of at least 3 years, and getting a line installed, which could have taken some considerable time. Also, it would have required a credit card for me to be able to actually pay for it, or it would have cost even more if I was to pay by cash. So I eventually found a solution which was like a 4G mobile dongle thing, you know, sort of uses just the mobile phone signal, and that worked well enough for a good amount of time, but it was slow, and it was also capped as well. So if I ever exceeded more than, I think it was 10 gigabytes in 3 days, it would slow down quite severely, down to like modem speeds essentially. But even if I didn't exceed those speeds, the upload rate was probably no better than 1 megabit per second. So it really wasn't that suitable for doing reliable streaming from in, you know, a respectable, say, 720p resolution. Although I'm sure these days most people will think I'm archaic for considering that an acceptable resolution, but anyway, whatever. So those practical restrictions essentially meant that I couldn't stream from Japan. But as time went on, other things sort of happened where I felt like I don't actually feel like I want to stream, to be honest with you, even if I could. I think one of the things is that when I came to Japan, maybe I somewhat deluded myself into thinking that I was going to be able to pick up enough Japanese to be able to live a fairly okay life, shall we say, within about 6 months or so. I had no expectation that I'd be fluent in any way, but I felt like I would be able to, you know, get along in life, you know, within about 6 months or so, after, you know, plenty of study, of course. The result is that I was nowhere near that, and arguably I'm probably still not there even now. So when it came to October last year, I put out an update on this channel saying that I was going to have to refocus the channel a little bit because there was just not enough hours in the day to be doing everything, such as doing gaming videos, Amiga related videos, pixel art related videos, manga related videos, what else, life in Japan related videos and so forth. There just wasn't enough hours in a day because obviously I'm doing a full-time job here in Japan as well. So, and I didn't want my life to be entirely about going to work and doing things for YouTube. So I put a video out which explained that I was going to be focusing much more on the manga, my drawing side of things, and allowing me to also have more time to study Japanese. And it has actually worked out really well because, you know, I took my very basic Japanese proficiency test at the end of last year and miraculously I passed. It wasn't a great pass, but it still was a pass. And it means that now, sort of 18 months, a year and a half after I moved to Japan, my ability to speak most of the everyday Japanese that I need is pretty much solid. And I'm getting to the point now where I can be reasonably conversational about maybe not a massive range of topics, but a good few things. And I might not be able to talk at great length about stuff, but I can get by. Maybe I'll talk about some of those experiences in another video. But in terms of actually building up relationships with people who live here and all the rest of it and making friends, that obviously takes time and it takes a great deal of energy. So yes, the continued practice and studying of Japanese has been essential to me to be able to really feel like I'm living a bit more than just a transient life here in Japan. So that's been really important. Just going back onto the pixel art for a minute, what I'm doing here is now that I've got the outlines all shaded in, I'm going to shade all of the main parts of the image, so like, you know, Saki's skin tones, the hair, the clothing and so forth. And what I will do for this is I will start with a low colour screen, so maybe 4 or 8 colours, and just begin to sort of shade those colours and just gradually increase the colour count as I go. This just helps me sort of make sure I keep my colour down to a minimum, and so I don't jump straight into using the 32 colour or 256 colour screen. It just allows me to use my colours sparingly doing it this way. And the main activity is to anti-alias against those outlines, and anti-aliasing is something I've talked about before at great length in some cases, so I would suggest you go and watch those videos. But this allows me to smooth out those areas of high contrast between colour changes so that it's smoother and eases the transition between those zones, shall we say, just by using intermediary colours to sort of make everything look nice. And this is just basically a case of just gradually working on the image, just shading bit by bit, bit by bit. So to wrap up on the streaming side of things, there's been another aspect to this that is related to the practicalities, but also just how life has been going here in Japan. And that has been that I've been taking a good, long, hard look at the way my life had been going up to the point of moving here. I mean, ultimately, that was one of the reasons why I made a decision to move here. I didn't want to just carry on life as it had been going. I needed to change my career path entirely, because arguably my career path up to the point of coming here last year in March was not by design, it was just by complete accident. So taking that good look at life has obviously meant that I've obviously decided to focus very much on my studying of Japanese and my artwork. And, hopefully with a few years and so forth working at those things, as and when I return to the UK, or whatever work I may go on to do here in Japan, or whatever actually pans out in the end, I'll have changed the course of my career, which is a good thing. And maybe that means that I will be working for myself as doing translation work and illustration, or maybe I'll be doing work for somebody else on either of those things. I don't actually know, but I'm not really too concerned about it at this stage. But life here has also made me really think about the way that I've been using social media as an outlet for my creativity. And I suppose I want the message in this video to be positive, so I don't want for what I've got to say to be taken negatively as such, as that I'm casting a wide sweeping opinion about what I think about something in general. But this is more about how I see social media and the sharing of stuff as it relates to my life. So this is just an opinion relating to what I feel about things, rather than me saying this is what I think about it in general. But I feel like over the years I have overshared stuff on social media, which has been rather strange for me, because I was always such a big holdout on social media. I was always getting hassled by friends to join Facebook and the likes in its early days, and I held out for years before I eventually relented. But gradually over time, my creativity ended up being sort of wrapped up with the need to share things on social media. It became part of the process that, if I went out to take photographs with friends, the process wasn't complete if it wasn't shared on Flickr, for example. It became part of the process, and I suppose over many years it didn't seem like something could happen without it being shared on social media in one form or another. And that could also extend to experiences. I felt that, if I didn't share what I did on social media, did it really happen, kind of thing, to borrow and twist a metaphor that sometimes you hear, the tree falls in the forest, does anybody hear it? And nobody's there, does anybody hear it? Really good at these metaphors. But for me, I felt like I need to move away from that. I feel like it's more important for me going forwards that I derive value out of the things that I do in life, whatever they might be. I'm not saying that it's wrong to share things on social media, because I still do it, and plenty of really amazing people share loads of stuff on social media, and I think that's fine. But I feel like for the way that I work, the way that I function, I feel like it's healthier for me to concentrate on doing things for myself first and foremost, and maybe only occasionally sharing stuff on social media. I mean, I still share probably quite a lot. I mean, ultimately I want to get the word about the manga, the comic that I'm working on, Future Saviors, out there. But in reality, when it comes to my own personal life here in Japan, I don't really want to share too much of that really on social media. It doesn't mean that I don't trust the people that follow me. I have some very valued followers that I quite happily, maybe in other ways, share what's going on here in Japan. And maybe in time, when the corona situation's over, I'll be more freely able to share some of the experiences I have here in Japan on my YouTube channel. But as regards to streaming, I don't really want to share too much of my life that publicly anymore. On a practical level or physical level, it's quite exhausting actually streaming, because I have to get up early. I have a job which requires me to be enthusiastic and, you know, sort of genki, as they say here in Japan, with the children, so that they feel encouraged to try and do their best at English. And so if I'm streaming late at night, it's tiring for me talking all the time. I don't do my best work when I'm streaming. And also it could annoy the neighbours, because the walls here are paper thin and I don't want to annoy them with me talking at 10, 11 o'clock at night, because there's a big time difference, living here in Japan. I mean, obviously for people on this side of the world, as it were, it's absolutely fine, but for those perhaps in Europe or America, and I mean North America and South America by that, parts of, well, wherever you might be tuning in kind of thing, there's a time zone difference. So there's some real practicalities, but it does come down to the fact that for me personally, I feel better for not sharing so much about what I'm doing in my life, shall we say, and I feel that streaming was the most exhausting part of that sharing for me. Regardless of whether people felt that I was good at it or not, I feel like I just want to enjoy drawing and do my thing on my own terms, in my own time, at my own pace, listening to podcasts, music, whatever I want to do, just working quietly by myself. I just want to actually have it as my own time. And the same thing with the gaming when it comes to streaming. Gaming for me is something that I derive a lot of pleasure out of, whether I'm playing a game, just by myself, or whether I'm playing with friends physically present in the room kind of thing. I enjoy that immensely, but to stream the games, for me it takes away some of the magic of the experience of gaming, the need to entertain. Whilst being entertained, it almost feels like I'm not really absorbing the experience fully. So I guess that probably wraps up why I'm unlikely to do any streaming from Japan, to be honest with you. And never say never on these things. There may be a good reason in the future, but that's just the way it is, really, I guess. But yes, as you can see with the pixel art, this has all gone really nicely. Now, it's not finished, because you'll see, for example, the background of like the car, which happens to be a Mitsubishi Starion, which belongs to another of my OCs, Hisao, who's not pictured. This is just Saki. That I will flesh out fully, and also the exterior city scene, that all needs painting in correctly, and there might be a little bit more work on Saki. But the key principles here have been taking that hand-drawn image, converting it into a black and white outline by using Photoshop to get a pure black and white outline, and then using D-Paint to tidy those lines up, and then using the stencil tools to paint in the colours for the outlines, and then shading pixel by pixel by using anti-aliasing techniques, and just gradually increasing the colour count to optimise the image. So in the next video, I'm going to perhaps show you the finished result of this, or maybe work on this a bit more, I'm not entirely sure yet, and talk about another aspect of my life here in Japan. I feel like these videos are going to work a bit better for me going forwards, because in time, hopefully I can share a bit of Japan, a bit of video footage of what I've been doing here as it relates to my artwork once the corona situation really hopefully begins to ease here. But also because, if I'm honest, continuously trying to find topics to educate people about how to do things is both difficult and also I find quite exhausting, and actually takes away from the spontaneity of me just being creative and so forth. And I'd rather show by example rather than by explicit instruction. Anyway, I hope you sort of enjoyed this. Maybe it's a bit of a weird video combining talking about life, Japan and artistic stuff at the same time, but anyway, I feel like it's gone alright. Anyway, I guess that all remains for me to say is see you soon. Peace!